Testing audio. Okay, audio seems okay. Let's get things sorted here. Hello. Just getting things set up here. I'm going to go over the Scimitar build first. And I've put the giveaway winners for the Bajoran Militia uniform codes. I'll be mailing the codes out later, but the 5 winners are listed in the description. On screen also. So, Drow rules supreme. Scimitar 1003. Gimme, not even gonna attempt to pronounce the rest of that. LT Solo X. Arius. Is the stream having some like, is it coming in at a weird resolution or something? YouTube's complaining about low video output. I think it's the sound doing it. So the 2 builds I'm going to go over for the Romulan themed stuff, I showed them off last week, but I didn't go over the full build. So the first one is the Scimitar cannon build using plasma stuff and the Romulan hyperplasma torp. Hold on, I'm just checking. I might have to restart the stream. It's it'll be down probably about 30 seconds. Hopefully this is a little bit better. It's saying that there's no dropped frames right now. Before it was saying that it was dropping about 65% of the frames. Seems to be all fixed. Okay. So, start what I was saying here. The 2 builds I'm going to go over for the Romulan themed stuff are a cannon scimitar build, what you see on the screen now, and then a FOD Deredex build. I showed these both off on stream last week, but I did not go over the full builds. So the first thing I'm going to go over is just the skill tree. I made a few changes to my skill tree. Just instead of a tackle, it is a balanced, and it's just a bit more points into some science stuff. And 1 point accidentally put an engineer. So I misclicked on this engineering readiness, meant to put it over in defensive coordination or where else in the attack tree. But I misclicked there and I didn't feel like spending $3 to fix that issue. But this is a pretty standard balanced skill tree. It's nothing really special. For the Scimitar, while I'm on this screen, for the Scatter Volley version, I'm doing Temporal Operative Primary for the dot buff to see if it would help the Torpedol, and it did not help that much, but it was something. The Tropic Rider was doing about 5k, but Continuity was helping me out quite a bit, being I wasn't able to run Invincible most of the time. Now, just go back to the gear first. Okay, so there's the quad cannons. Now, these haven't been doing as well as I would expect compared to like the phaser or disruptor quad cannons. I mean, if you're running a plasma build, they're okay, but I wouldn't go out of my way to go out and buy them. Then there's 3 DHCs. You could also do dual cannons. Modifiers don't really matter as long as they're crit deer damage or pen. And then, of course, the Romulan Hyperplasma, which I was going over quite a bit last week, spamming that with high yield. Then Deflector is the colony one for the crit chance and severity. The engines are the competitive. These ones proc off of heals, and the point of that is I can use my heals like in evasive maneuvers to move when I want to move. Singularity Core is a Fleet Spire one. The shield is a competitive shield, but you could run any shield you wanted, really. Doesn't matter. And then for the aft weapons, pretty much any plasma turret works here. I did buy this plasmatic auto turret from the low-buy store, and in most of the parses I was looking at, it was generally underperforming compared to the other turrets, so I would not invest in it, especially with its modifiers being pretty bad right now. AC times 3 is really, really bad. 5 plasma attack consoles, ability locators, standard. Flagship 3-piece being the Scimitar. Exception being, instead of having the Science Scimitar console, because it is complete trash, I have the Timeline Stabilizer. But if you don't have the Timeline Stabilizer, the Science one works if you want to do the 3-piece. It's just not a good console. Then I have the Point Defense Bombardment Warhead. This is off of the NX, and that is a nice clicky I've talked about a few times before. If you hit it on a Transformer in ISA, it might do about 4 to 5k if you're really lucky. And that is a passive 1% crit chance and 25% projectile damage, so that is buffing the Romulan Hyperplasma Torpedo. And then in the same set as that Point Defense Bombardment Warhead console is the DPRM, which hopefully most of you know about by now. And the 2-piece, as most of us will know, is a buff to Phaser and Disruptor, but it's also a buff to Plasma. So it's a pretty good damage buff there. And the final console is the one we refer to as the Valdor. Shield absorptive frequency generator. That is off the Valdor Heavy Warbird. It's like 1,000 Zen chip. It's a very powerful console for shield heals. You'll often see some people get about 10k healing per second out of this. It's a console that will basically guarantee you first place in CCA on a Romulan that's doing a lot of damage. Hanger is, of course, the elite Romulan drone chips. If anyone has any questions, by the way, just go ahead and ask, and I can comment on them while we're going here. So, bridge officer wise, emergency powered weapons 1, Oxtabat 1. This is an Oxtabat build because I like Oxtabat builds. They're just easy. They simplify a lot of issues you would have with most builds nowadays, you know, like power levels, cooldown reduction. Such a good setup you can do. And then concentrate firepower 3 for spamming high yield on the Romulan plasma torp. Other engineer has emergency powered engine 1, so that'll trigger this emergency con hologram. The second Oxtabat. Moving over to the TAC off station, TAC team 1, chemo 2, distributed targeting 1, beta 1, high yield 3, scatter volley 3. On the rapid fire variant of this, which is what I would run most of the time myself, being I have the traits, you just swap the scatter volley 3 for rapid fire and the distributed targeting for fire at will to trigger preferential targeting. And then we have Lieutenant Science with hazard emitters 1 and a stabilizing resonance beam 1, but you can swap that DRB out for pretty much anything. Duty officer wise, I wish I had more DOF slots here. So 3 technicians for Oxtabat, emergency con hologram I just mentioned, and then 2 of the projectile weapon officers, and each of these has a 20% chance to reduce the cooldown time on your torpedo. So the nice thing is with the Romulan hyperplasma, each of the torpedoes, each volley with that torp has 3 individual torpedoes. If I remember right, each of those has a chance to proc these DOFs. So if you could somehow fit 3 of them on, you've got 3 20% chances that each of the 3 torps has to proc. That's why you see that torp spam so well even without concentrate firepower. Last thing is the trait. So let's go down on this here. Ablative shell for the heal. Anchored for the damage buff. Context is for kings. This is a discovery lockbox trait. It's a newer one. It's like 3 to 4 million on the exchange. It's pretty decent and gives you either resistance or a damage buff when you're being shot at or not being shot at. So if you're being shot at, you get the resistance, and if you're not being shot at, you get a Cat 2 damage buff, up to 30 resistance or 10% all damage. Romulan operative, because Romulan, of course. A good day to die, because I'm tactical and pretty much a must-have trade if you're tactical. Self-modulating fire for the shield pen. Superior cannon training for buffing the cannons, of course. Fleet coordinated for the damage buff, and then superior projectile training for the damage buff for the torp. Same stuff we've seen, just slightly changed. And moving over to starship traits, emergency weapon cycle. Withering barrage for extending the duration of scatter volley. Cold-Hearted for the debuff with Ox to Bat. And keep in mind, Cold-Hearted is a control ability on anything you shoot. So it works with the controlled countermeasures rep trait, which gives you a 7% Cat 2 damage buff against anything you shoot that is controlled. And then for the other two traits, Starship traits, I've got Promise of Ferocity, but you can swap that out to whatever you want with the Scatter Volley loadout. With Rapid Fire, I would drop this for preferential targeting. I would drop Withering Barrage for Go for the Kill on the Rapid Fire setups. The final trait is the Subspatial Warheads. I went over this one a bit last week also. And basically, each of the high yields that hit or transport warheads will cause the like a little anomaly to appear on the target and do a little bit of damage. Now, in the run I had about 10 to 13k from the subspatial warhead trait with that. So out of the 53k that Torp did, I think in that specific run it was 13k that trait did. It's a very good trait to run with high yield spamming Torps. And that is off the Sona Intel Battle Cruiser, for those that want to look at it. Yep. Moving over to the rep traits, the precision for the crit chance, targeting systems for the severity, shield pen, the controlled countermeasures I just mentioned for the damage buff, and then the Terran torpedo buffing trait, which the friend notifications would not pop up there. This torpedo pre-fire sequence trait is 12.5% Cat 2 for Torps, which is just stupidly good. And then plus 33% destructible torpedo flight speed, so it buffs up the Torps and makes the Romulan ones fly faster. It's really good. And that wraps up this build. Has anyone got any questions? I know I'm just talking. I'm very enthusiastic about this build. Realize this thing's got a base crit chance of 31%. Nobody have questions? Curious right now what the actual base crit chance. So the weapon specialization skill, the one that gives you the crit chance, and then the weapon amp that gives you the crit severity, those do not show up in your crit chance and severity stats here. So with 135 of the crit chance skill, that means I have a base of 42.3 crit chance on this. Not bad. And before I swap over and go over the Dare decks, I'll of course go and shoot something with this. Whatever goes go for there will actually be sound. Got all the ambient sounds for the game turned off. What shield is that? The competitive shield? Or the individual? So the reason I'm using scatter volley is because it's usually, you know, a much more affordable option. It's not fair to always show rapid fire builds off to people because you need about 1.5 billion EC worth of traits to make them work. But I gotta say, man, the scatter volley just suck. Like, compared to rapid fire, gosh, it's doing so little damage to the target. Crazy. Visual, you don't. So I tried going in and changing it to this the other day, and then I went into an ISA and it looked completely terrible. Using the default Scimitar skin, I'm gonna have to. I think it was the Falchion Polar skin that looked a bit darker. I went into ISA and this thing is terrible looking. So, that's the scatter volley build. So the scatter volley works. It's just that rapid fire is better. Well, need a kidney properly. So the Dederidex build. This is pretty much the same thing, just with I've got this set up as a threat type thing. So basically, what you're going to see the changes on this boil down to are swapping the cannon buffs over to beam buffs. As soon as I can remember where the fall trait is on this list. There we go. So the traits, pretty much the exact same. I just went over for the Scimitar. I just swapped the superior cannon training over to beam training, and the scatter volley trait over to redirecting arrays, and that's it. Shut up, sleep. Twitch IRL. Is the mic volume low? Okay, so for this thing, what I've done is just swapped. Instead of having cannons, it's beams because it's a fall threat build. I've got the experimental Romulan plasma beam array on, and 6 random plasma beams. Doesn't matter what mods they are, as long as it's damage or crit D. Then I've got the Romulan plasma torp, competitive 3-piece, and the colony deflector. So the reason for the competitive 3-piece is because it gives you bonus resistance when you're being shot at. So yeah. Console wise here, thought I'd make this. Okay, so Protomatter field projector off of the Lucari anniversary ship from last year. The DPRM that I've already went over. The Valdor console, the shield absorb frequency generator for the shield heals. 0-point energy conduit. This is the Romulan reputation console. So I'm running the full 3-piece with the experimental beam array and the hyperplasma torp. And that gives me a 10% Cat 1 damage buff for plasma energy weapons, and then the 3-piece gives like a beam overload for the beam array, which isn't really that great. Then I've got the Domino console. This is off of the Bajoran ship from the most recent anniversary. The Kabali Rift console, Regenerative Integrity Field. It's just a survivability console. Point Defense Bombardment Warhead, which I went over for the Scimitar build just before. And then the Reiterative Structural Capacitor. This is one of the Kobayashi Maru consoles. So you can get it from the weekend event store. And then 3 Plasma Attack consoles. I don't have a Plasma Omni Beam. But yeah, a Plasma Omni certainly wouldn't hurt for this. The duty officers are the exact same as the build I just showed off with the Scimitar, so 3 technicians, 2 projectile officers for reducing the cooldown of or the recharge speed on the torps. Then the emergency con hologram for the speed buff. It's all stuff we've seen times before. Okay, so bridge officer. This is interesting setup. So Lieutenant Universal I have set as attack, and that's got TAC Team 1 and Beta 1. The Ensign TAC has High Yield 1 for the torp. Then the Lieutenant Commander TAC / Command has Concentrate Firepower 1, Chemosite 2, and Fire Will 3. Yeah, Snipe, yeah, I can't afford a Omni right now. I could craft one, but it takes too long. Then the Lieutenant Commander Science has Hazard Emitters 1, Vortex 2, and Gravity Well 1. You can swap that out to whatever you want. Like, this is just to have a little bit of control on the targets. And then we move over to the Commander Engineer, so I wanted to do Ox to Bat on this because I'm just gonna be honest here. I'm pretty lazy. It's very easy to do Ox to Bat. It works well. It handles most of the issues you run into on the end game builds, like cooldown reduction and power. So I don't really care about my Ox power. I can still go into Battle Cloak when I need to, and yeah. So on most builds, you need to have 2 emergency power to subsystem abilities. So I've got emergency power to engines 1 and emergency power to weapons 3. And then because it's an Ox to Bat build, I needed to have 2 Ox to Bats. Because I don't have enough engineering readiness to do just 1 Ox to Bat. So my only option was to do Ox to Bat 1 and 3. Yeah. It's not the most ideal thing to do, but it works. What I'm going to do now is let's take this build into some stuff. How it does. Oh yeah, you know, that is a very good point. Ox to Bat with the abilities that rely on your Ox. You just gotta time them. You'll still have points with Ox to Bat where you have Ox power. See that? Second Ox to Bat comes in and you've got the power. And it doesn't matter to have your power levels over 75 for everything anymore because Amp was hit pretty hard with C13. Yeah, but you see every other Ox to Bat, the power recovers. I see the board queues are very active. Is EPS still important? 2 to 300% is what I would recommend. EPS is always good to have. The more the better, but I wouldn't bother at this point investing over 300. And Snipey, I would love to show some of these wonderful hacks, but you gotta get these queues to pop, you know? Wow. Okay, there it goes. Watch how much my chat window loses text when I uncheck the my exchange hacks. Well, it's simple. You just gotta go buy my stuff. You buy my stuff and I get EC. Simple as that. That was just terrible. But that's what this build is for. It's not for performance, it's for fun. $97K. Warning. But this build is, as I said, it's not for performance, it's for fun. Look at the parse for that and see how terrible it was. Isolated there did about 5K there. Subspace Warhead straight. 97K is on a ROM hack is not exactly amazing. And I think, you know, that pretty much seeing the Scimitar build and that wraps up seeing the themed builds. So let's swap back to things that do DPS. Does anyone have any questions about the builds though before I swap out of too much stuff? Yeah, Snipey, it's been doing surprisingly well, though it is certainly much more enjoyable to do it on the Scimitar with the proper high yield spam. It's just always interesting to see you get people that are like, how can you do so many builds on the same character? But like with those FA builds or these cannon builds, you're not changing too much. And bam, I just changed my personal traits. I changed one thing. Now if I go and change starship traits, I'm changing one or two things here. Because I can find where they are on the list. There they are. I did have the Romulan beam array and the Romulan rep console on the Dideradex build I just showed. I have used dual beam banks. I used to use them quite a bit, but ever since I got into cannons, I stopped. So I'm gonna do something that I'll likely regret, and that is swapping out my emergency con hologram for a third projectile weapon officer. I'm just gonna take this build into Kittimer with rapid fire and shoot stuff. Because the rapid fire variant is much better than the scatter volley variant, because you're doing so much damage to a single target instead of spreading the damage out with scatter volley. Are they still worth using? I mean, you can still use dual beam banks. It's just that cannons are better at that job. I mean, you're doing a forward-facing build with that, and you're much better off with cannons. all up before the generators. Watch them dots stack. Yeah, scatter volley needs a little bit more to be competitive with rapid fire. The issue with this Romulan plasma torp is it cannot hit these gateways. Big downside to it. That probe's done for. It's just fun to try and overwhelm the generator or the transformers and the gateways with these torps. Oh, there's still 5 somehow. I got it. Yeah, the torps still bug out on the gates. Honestly, before they go and buff or do anything more to scatter volley, they need to do something for the other weapon enhancement abilities. Fire at Will could honestly use a little bit of love. I think that the fall extension trait should be changed. That is the redirecting arrays trait, which is somewhere up here. Basically, the only way the Fire at Will extension trait will work is if you're on like a threat build, like a threat tank. That was a terrible way to put it in. They would have been much better off doing something like they did for Scatter Volley, where it just gives a flat out increase in a few seconds. or go for the kill if they really wanted, but I don't think they want us to have infinite uptime on fire at will. But still, at least having a better way to get up to 15 or so seconds duration would have been better. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, because I saw fun to get some crazy numbers out of this stuff, swap over to a build using Saboteur. What really needs a buff, though, is Beam Overload. Beam Overload should work just like Rapid Fire. It shouldn't be in the state it is now, where Beam Overload is very bad. Okay, so I've swapped back over to a Disruptor loadout. I'm using the Saboteur dual cannons, the console in that set, and then the Torpedo. So with that Torpedo, or with the full set, the Torpedo gets a damage buff. It basically gets a free transport warhead on top of the high yield. And that makes it work very well with the subspatial warhead trait, because subspatial warhead trait triggers off of both high yield and transport warhead, meaning it will proc a bunch. The rapid modifier is not worth using on cannons. Terrible modifier. Honestly, at this point, I wouldn't even go for pen on weapons if I were investing right now. If you've got all the traits and stuff like cold-hearted. If you don't, then yeah, pen's a bit more valuable. But I would say just go with crit D or damage. If you're on a attack and you're buffing things up heavily, I would go with damage. You see people say that crit D beats damage at about 15%, but that's not true in my experience. I was running comparisons on crit D and damage weapons at 50 to 60% crit chance a few months ago, and there was no noticeable difference. So if there's no noticeable difference at that high of a crit chance, then crit severity is not going to win at 15% crit chance. Oh, while I remember, pull it up here. Just a little bit of what I've been. I went through, and this entire spreadsheet will be linked in the video when it comes out. I'm not sure if this specific thing will be on Monday, or if I'll be covering this in one of the later videos. But I was doing the math on how much you can make crafting upgrades. And it's actually pretty crazy how much you can make just crafting superior upgrades, even if you buy the components or buy the materials. And it's also crazy how the superior experimentals are just complete trash. Shortly after, these numbers aren't accurate to what the values are right now, but The superior experimentals, in some of the cases, are you're actually losing money crafting them versus just selling the materials to craft them. But if you're doing just normal superiors, they can be really profitable. When I was doing this, engineering upgrades represent a 300% return, so invest 10 million, you come out with 30. So this is just some of the stuff I'm working on for the upcoming EC generation videos. The experimental upgrades have a higher dilithium cost. They require 2 salvage, and they're only worth it in some very rare cases, like if you have a Mark II item and you're wanting to try and increase the rarity. The issue is that if someone has an item that is really valuable to them and they want to try to get it done, or taken to epic or whatever really early on, you don't want to use an experimental, you want to use an omega upgrade. So the superior experimental upgrades are competing with the omega upgrades, which are free and have a much better chance at making something go epic. The experimentals are just sitting in there as they're just in a really weird spot. Whereas the superior upgrades still have some value because you still need a bunch of them to, take something up if you don't have Phoenix upgrades. Power my clean's ready. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm distracted. So off topic for the game, but looks like Stargate Command, if you're a member or subscriber to that, they are extending your subscription by 6 months. How's a red alert take this long to pop? So tempting to go and gamble some of this season, but I know I need to save it. So this is a terrible map to test this part because things just dying too fast for you to really build up on it. It just sucks that the really good maps are ISA and ASA, but you gotta wait 30 minutes for it. Want me to use my EC? Very terrible idea. I would keys. Just 10. 20. I'll definitely stop at 20. Go Down Fighting hasn't had the tooltip buff since season 13, but it's still working. It's hard. My money back. I love gambling. Promo ship has a 1% drop rate. Ship am I gonna get to sell today? Wow, the Keldons went down in value, 300 mil. I think I saw tarantulas at 250. Wow. Someone's trying to dump their stockpile of ships. That's... This Alachi Sateth always is high value, but the issue is they just don't sell. You end up in a bidding war going downwards, and selling it for around 300 a week. Some of these ships aren't higher value. I get why the Keldon's low. The Keldon, the tier 5 version of it, the Galore, is gonna be in the Victorious Life pack. Get that rate available account wide, so Spireways will no longer be a unique thing. The Gem Dread, that one though. I mean, I know the T5 version is gonna be there, but T6 is still a better ship. Imperium's a ship that just sort of, it had so much attention to it like a year or two ago, and now it's just, you don't see much attention towards it, and it's surprising because it is still a very good ship. It's got the Lieutenant Intel / Tactical, so you can do OSS on it. You can do Aux to Bat on it. I'm just surprised. Or what ship to grab here? Guess the stay test will come back in a week and see that it still hasn't. Nice low ball on there. 750 they have for it. Cooldowns. Well, QA, then you know you could just give Omega your account, come back and be drained of everything. Omega's got an even worse gambling addiction than I. I need at least some stuff cool down, so I'll give it 90 seconds and I'll queue up. So would you all see that Romulans are going to be able to use most of their allies' ships? It was in a dev blog that was released today, and it was pushed over to Tribble a few days ago. It's not working on Tribble. The Zindi Aquatic Carrier there, it's a good ship. But like most other ships, the one downside to it is that it's a 4-3. They've come out with these ships that have 5-2 or 5-3 setups, and having 5 forward-facing weapons puts the ship at a significant advantage, and only having 4 really hurts those that don't. And Luigi, there was a bunch of complaints about that go down fighting stuff when that change initially happened with season 13. But I can assure you, it is actually working. It's cool to go through. 181K, so. So that's technically 190 because those last two spheres can kind of magically removed. Say. Let's take a look at that parse. I'm thinking it'd be a bit interesting to look at. So my dual heavy cannons and dual cannons 31 plus. So the high yield 1 spam from concentrated firepower of the Saboteur torpedo did 11k. The high yield 3 did 4.7. 3.4. Did pretty well. I need to pull up a calculator. So the torpedo itself did 33k. Then if we add in the pets here, I'll open another calculator. Just trying to figure out how much exactly that torpedo did with subspace trade. Thought I had a fleet support. So I'm adding up all of these isolytic tears are the subspace warhead trade. I'll pull it up here in a minute. But that's triggering off of the torpedo. That's a lot of isolytic tears. That torpedo did 62.5k in that ISA I just did. That is insane. That is really, really good. Change the font? I didn't go in and change, like, all I did was make the window bigger. I didn't change the font type. Absurd how good that torpedo and that trait. So the trait I'm talking about is the subspatial warheads. So the high yield and transport warheads spawn this subspace tear near the target that does damage. Hold on just a minute. Sorry about that. So I'm using high yield 3 and concentrate firepower, so I'm spamming a ton of high yields with this torp. But because I've got the 3-piece on, so the torp, the cannons, there's also a beam if you want to use a beam. And then the console, what it does is with each high yield, it gives a free transport warhead. So each torp is triggering that trait at least twice. And that's not even a bug. That is legitimately working as this is intended. Lund, when you listen to this, it's not a bug. It is the trait working exactly the way it's supposed to. It's just that that is such a powerful combo. That is crazy. I'm gonna go into a Kittimer next and spam the gates and the transformer and just see how much it can do. I don't know what to say there about the text change. I didn't go in and change anything. It's just how it is for me. I really wasn't expecting it to do that good. That was just weird. That's a very good find, line. That is crazy. That made my chemosite DPS even up. Just waiting for the queue to pop. On this specific loadout, I'm using the Fleet Spire, well, one of the Fleet Spire ones, Thoron infused. We sit here and wait for Kittimer to eventually pop. If anyone wants to join Kittimer, it's here right now. I'm just gonna go over and shoot a transformer or something and just look at the numbers. I forget. wasn't expecting that to go that fast. That's what I get for swapping off Temporal Primary. I have basically no heals on this. That was actually really impressive, how fast that gate went down and how fast the transformer. Happens when right up against an object. That was just crazy how fast the tide went down there like that. I go shoot stuff in. But need more things that have nice high HP bosses. Things that stay alive long enough. You really see how much of a mistake this By the way, if anyone is holding out on doing upgrades for Mark 15, like getting stuff to Epic, don't. I would highly recommend you get things to Epic at Mark 14 rather than waiting to do it at Mark 15. Ending chunk more to appear. Got that. I showed the traits and the build at the start of the video or the stream, so if you can go back to the start and it's all there. The STO without some misfires. Back. Not gonna name them all, but everything. Subspatial warheads is doing pretty damn work with Saboteur 3. character. Band here shortly. 'Trying to get all my characters up to level 60 so I can claim every last recruitment event reward.
Quoi
20 of my characters are already at 60, but the other 30 I have are not. The point of me going through and getting them all to 60 is so that I can claim every last thing off here. I'll go through claim these all once I've got all of them, but I need to go through and do the. I'm even on my temporal. But some of these you can't claim until level 60, and like this Delta Quadrant one, that's 5k dill. So on the 30 characters that I haven't leveled up to 60, that's 150k dill I can get just from getting them up to level 60. Pop-up is very, I really wish the patch today had taken care of that what greeting screen or whatever, the landing page. Trying to do contraband again daily, and that page is. I'm gonna do one more ISA and then I'm gonna call it. Be about 2 hours on stream. Admiral. Most fun thing we can do. I know I could just cancel out the attack on this one, but got so many ships, why not just toss them all at it? So in this ISA puck I'm going to intentionally try to dope stuff as much as possible, and by that I mean I'm going to go right after the Transformers, and I'm going to go right after the gate. I might even just go after the gate and call it a day and just see how crazy high the numbers can go. So even if the numbers in this one are high, it's not going to be like a jet parse or whatever. It's doping, blocking me, uploading if I tried. And add a minute for the last minute. Gotta hover over it for. You have to move your mouse over it. Very responsive. So I'm just gonna spam the gate and see if this Saboteur Warp with the 3-piece and high yield spam does anything nice. And that will wrap up the stream, but I'll of course look at the parse afterwards just to see how stupid it is. As soon as ISA pops at it. I'm betting I won't even likely get 300 mil out of this. Probably crashing. And thank you for watching, Zettel. But the builds I showed at the start, I mean, they're not the best builds ever. They were just, you know, themed. But the Saboteur stuff here, certainly very interesting. Crazy how much that torp with a 3-piece and then that subspatial warhead trait, just how much it just destroys stuff. just gonna sit here and pound the gate. Like, I'm being such a great teammate, but this is just such a fun thing to do. See how high you can get the numbers. And it's funny to watch pugs go and get the sides. Warp shadows failed me. What? They're so far away. The bugs couldn't get it. Oh, that's funny.
You will lower your shields and prepare to
Guess I can help them be a team player. See if I can kill this while the things are around it. Don't do this in an actual ISA. This is... It's terrible. It's a terrible thing to do to your team.
You will become one with the Borg.
Rapid fire miss fired. If this lets me upload, I have to complain to Alfie. So cheesy. Really just old cheesy. Is it gonna let it go through? Good. It blocked it for gate doping. Look at my damage. ISA is a map that has 30 billion like HP total. Like anything over 30 to 33 million is technically doping because you're hitting stuff that's being healed up. Man, 78 million. What? What? That Torp did stupidly good too. I'm gonna have to add this all up like I did before. Go in here and subtract the drone chips. So the trait, the subspatial warhead trait did 50. Let's add up the Torp itself. So Torp did 108k basically. Even though it doesn't count because it was doping on the gate the entire time. But that is still crazy. Just need more survivability if I try that again. $78 million. Before I go, let's look at the damage too. The thing is if I would have had about 15 million less damage on the gateway, I would have been able to upload that parse. That's the sad thing. Crit chance. 46, 56, or 61 on the transport warhead. Very cheap. And yeah, so that wraps it up. If you want to have some fun, grab yourself the Sona Intel Battlecruiser and get the subspatial warhead trait, and then pick up the 3-piece Saboteur set, so the Universal Console, the Torp, and the beam or cannon, and spam high yields with the Torp. Do that combination, and it's going to give you some crazy numbers. And that wraps things up, so thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.